Good afternoon. I feel happy to share that I have been nominated for Professor V.K. Kustigi Excellence in Teaching Award 2023. In connection with this, today I'll be presenting a technical talk on green manufacturing. I welcome you all for the presentation, my colleagues and my students for the presentation on green manufacturing. I thank management, Namana Trust, principal for providing this opportunity. So, we are all aware of the fact that the globe is facing lot of problems. It may be global warming, it may be greenhouse effect, climate change. So I think this is a need of the hour to solve such problems which are crucial, and these problems are spread all over the world. So one such solution to such problems is green manufacturing. The contents of my presentation are: what is introduction, definition of green manufacturing, significance, sources of pollution, one example of emission, green manufacturing as a solution, implementation of green manufacturing, limitations, conclusions. So manufacturing, traditional manufacturing, we all know that manufacturing is a process of converting raw materials into finished goods. One example, for example, if you want to say manufacture cement, what are the raw materials? It may be calcium oxide, limestone, okay, so alumina, all these are raw materials which gets converted into finished goods. That finished good is cement. Then, so what are the implications of this? Because traditional manufacturing will not take into account what are the implications on the environment, which is very important. What are the ill effects on the environment? What is the negative impact on the environment? Therefore, all the traditional manufacturing process will result in producing a negative impact on the environment. So, what are the negative impact? If you look into that, therefore, traditional manufacturing bears a negative impact on the environment, which is long-term in nature. Conservation of ecology is the need of the hour. Conservation of ecology is the need of the hour, because of the traditional manufacturing, there are different types of pollution. It may be water pollution, it may be air pollution, and so on. So green manufacturing is one of the solutions which addresses to these problems which are global in nature. Now, what is green manufacturing? What is green manufacturing? Green manufacturing is a process where it takes into consideration the impact on the environment. So there is almost no impact on the environment or minimal impact on the environment. That is green manufacturing. In contrast to traditional manufacturing, there is a huge impact on the total ecology and environment. Now here, in case of green manufacturing, the impact is minimal. I can say sometimes there is no impact at all, negative impact at all. So what does that do? So green manufacturing focuses on reducing the pollution, conserving the natural resources. That is very much important. What are the natural resources? See, coal, oil, natural gas, soil, all these are natural resources. Whatever the human uses, that is nothing but natural resources. That is nothing but it's a natural resource. So, this green manufacturing takes into consideration conservation of natural resources, minimization of natural resources, use of the natural resources. At the same time, so results in energy conservation, recycling and reuse. I'll give one example for recycling. So paper, if you take example of paper, you know that paper can be recycled. Okay. So if you recycle paper, the amount of bamboo that is cut will be reduced. So two things will happen here. One is the impact of the environment is reduced. Second thing is that you are conserving the bamboo. You are conserving the resources. So these are taken into consideration whenever we go for green manufacturing, which is not the case in traditional manufacturing. So I was pointing out this point that it results in reduction of use of natural resources, it reduces the pollution, and at the same time recycle, reuse. So when you recycle, when you reuse, what happens? For example, if I am reusing, say, plastic container, if I am using any plastic material, if you reuse that, then what happens? So the environment will be clean. We don't throw anything to the environment. Environment will be clean. It will be green because you are saving the trees in case of bamboo. So clean, green and better place to live. These are the three important implications of green manufacturing, which is not evident in anywhere. It may be traditional manufacturing. So you can see there, three things are better, clean, and green. That is the reason the name green manufacturing is given. Even you have seen in banks, they are going for paperless, transaction. This is nothing but this is a green manufacturing implementation, indirect implementation, I can say. Whenever you go green, it means that whenever you are saving paper, when you save paper, you are saving bamboo. When you are saving bamboo, you are conserving the natural resource. So this is very important, which is very important from long-term perspective. We need to take into consideration that point. Okay. So then, green manufacturing adopts technology, principle, practices that lessen the environmental impact, restores the ecology. Restoring the ecology is very important. Restoring ecology is very important because all the different sources of power generation, they impact the environment because they result in air pollution and water pollution. So we need to conserve our ecology, which is very important from long-term perspective, from global perspective. Okay, so this is resulting in restoring the ecology as well as lessening the impact on the environment. Both the things. The impact otherwise. What happens if you don't go for green manufacturing? What are the implications of that? So first implication is it increases in the consumption of natural resources. For example, if you don't recycle, what happens? Paper, if you don't recycle, the number of bamboo trees cut will go on increasing. All plants, they take in carbon dioxide, leave oxygen, which is very important. This is very important. But if you don't conserve that, if you don't recycle, what happens is you go on using the paper without recycling. So one fine day, there will be no resources. I give one example here. Coal. If you take example of coal, thermal power plants, they use coal as a fuel. So you go on using coal. Coal is basically exhaustible in nature. It is exhaustible in nature. One fine day, there will be no coal. There's a big question mark. There is no coal. What next? What about power generation? So this is a question mark if you don't conserve the natural resources. So here they go for recycling, and if you don't go for recycling, definitely if you use the sources which are exhaustible in nature, such as coal, one fine day there will be no such resources in the earth crust. Next is high energy consumption. See, the population is increasing, the energy demand is increasing, the energy consumption is increasing. The question is, from where this power is generated? In India, at least 50% of power is generated from coal. So during the power generation, it is adding SOx emission, NOx emission, CO emission, CO2 emission. So these are added to the environment. So this results in higher energy consumption, which will cause environmental hazards. It may be water pollution, it may be air pollution, and so on. Okay, so these are the impact. It means that if you don't go for green manufacturing, the entire environment will be at stake. That is a major takeaway if you don't go for green manufacturing. If you go for traditional manufacturing without considering the implications of that, one fine day, two things will happen. There will be no natural resources available. The total environment ecology will be at stake. So therefore, it is necessary to take such considerations when you go for manufacturing. That itself is green manufacturing. See, I was rightly pointing out. So, what are the implications of not going for green manufacturing? See, CO2 levels are increasing in the atmosphere. So, other impacts of industrialization, population growth, head up on the right side in the graph. It means that things are becoming more challenging. CO2, you know that it is a greenhouse gas. It results in greenhouse effect. Okay, industrialization, it results in water pollution. So these are creating more challenges day by day. So always what comes into mind is how to resolve this problem, how to overcome these problems, how to resolve this problem. The one answer for that is green manufacturing, where we'll see in the next slide what are the different sources of pollution. What are the different sources of pollution? There are three sources of pollution. Major, I'm speaking about major sources. One is industries, power plants, and residential. Now I'll come to the main point. of our technical talk. Say, these are the sources of power generation in India. This is very important. In India, you can see 52% of the power is generated from the coal. 52%, it's substantial. So from power generation, from coal, it results in, I told you, SOx emission because carbon contains sulfur. Carbon results in sulfur emission. The next, carbon results in, when you burn the carbon, CO, incomplete combustion, CO2, CO. So these are some of the pollution which are resulting from coal. So 52% of the power is generated in India from coal. It means that we need to take care of substituting this coal by some other means. You can see here the hydel is 25% hydel along with the other renewable 25%. Now there is a question always, if there is no coal, which type of power plants? One solution is there, that is biomass power plants. Biomass based power plants where instead of coal you are burning some other agricultural based products in the form of briquettes. So if you burn that, all the emissions will be reduced. Then oil 10% and then nuclear 3% and other alternate energy sources 9%. So this is a major concern when it comes to India from power generation point of view. Okay. Now I'll give one example for what is use phase, what is manufacturing phase, and how the things should be taken into consideration to convert this into that. Say we are manufacturing a car. When you manufacture car, the total energy which is required to manufacture car, that is called as embodied energy. Embodied energy, this is the energy which is required to manufacture car. Total energy. And whenever I use the word energy, the units for energy is kilowatt hour. It is kilowatt hour. Okay. And this embodied energy is the total energy which is required to manufacture the car. Once the car is manufactured, the car will be in operation. It will be on the road. It will be on the operation. That is called as use phase. There are two phases. One is manufacturing phase, one is use phase. Okay. Let us assume that in India, we are manufacturing a car. When you manufacture car, major portion of the power that is required to manufacture car comes from coal. 50% comes from coal. It means that in order to manufacture car, you are adding substantial amount of pollution to the environment in terms of air pollution. That is only in the manufacturing phase. Once the car comes on the road, that is the operation phase, use phase. Once again, it may be petrol or diesel car. Once again, there will be emission in the form of SOx, NOx, CO2, all those things. It means that there is a pollution in both the phases, in the manufacturing phase and also in the use phase. Now, one interesting thing about this is the energy which is coming from different sources, it varies from region to region. This is the beauty of this. For example, if you take Russia, major portion of the power is generated from nuclear source. In India, coal. It means that this goes on changing from geography to geography based on the natural resources available there. Okay. Now, we need to take into consideration how to convert this kilowatt hour into the greenhouse gas emission. kWh into GHG. So, how to convert this? When you are converting this, you have to take into consideration the factors which are responsible for power generation. What factors are used? In India, majority coal, yes. Then other than this, what other things can be implemented? Energy mix can be used, appropriate energy mix. What is energy mix? For example, you can use some portion of nuclear, some portion of coal, that is thermal power plant, or hydel and coal. So you can use appropriate energy mix. When you use appropriate energy mix, what happens is, you are not using only one source of energy. You are using different source of energy. For example, instead of using only the thermal power plant for manufacturing phase, if you use hydel and thermal power plant, at that time, when you generate power from hydel power plant, the emission is nothing. There is no emission at all. Because it's hydel power plant. You know what is hydel power plant? So water flows from a head, it enters into the powerhouse, then it drives a turbine is connected to a generator. power is generated. There is no emission at all. That is the reason idle power plants are called as white coal. Those are called as white coal. White coal. It's very interesting. You are not burning anything. You are generating power. So here, one major takeaway is the appropriate energy mix is important. Whether you are using coal, hydel, nuclear, or hydel biomass. So if you use appropriate energy mix, definitely we can go for sustainable source of power generation, sustainable way of manufacturing things. It is called as sustainable manufacturing. Green manufacturing is also called as sustainable manufacturing. Now, why green manufacturing, is a solution, and what are the different factors which says that green manufacturing is a solution for all these problems? First is recycling. Recycling is nothing but you are converting waste materials into once again finished products. For example, you start from waste paper, you are once again coming back to paper which is usable in nature as a fresh material. That is the recycling. So recycling, see, there are different advantages of recycling. One advantage of recycling is, so you are not wasting you are not wasting the natural resources. That is one advantage. Second one, you are conserving the natural resources. Second advantage. Third advantage, it is not resulting in any pollution. Third advantage. So all these three things are byproducts of green manufacturing. So all these three things are byproducts. That is what this slide is saying. So reduce consumption of fresh material. Then see, once again, recycling protects the environment because it reduces the needs of extraction. The need of extraction here in case of paper, logging means cutting down the bamboo. That is reduced. You go on recycling paper. So what happens is, if you recycle the paper, the amount of tree that is cut will be reduced. So therefore, you are minimizing the use of natural resources and the environment is greener. At the same time, you are conserving the ecology. So these three things are coming into picture. So green manufacturing suggests the alternate energies that can be used otherwise. See, there are some energy which are called as clean energy. Clean energy. For example, wind is a clean energy. Hydel is a clean energy. Biomass is a clean energy. Tidal is a clean energy. Solar is a clean energy. So, green manufacturing suggests the use of the clean energy for manufacturing process. If you use solar energy, there is no pollution at all. If you use wind energy, no pollution at all. If you use hydel energy, no pollution at all. So, it means that as long as you go for clean sources of energy, it is always sustainable because it is not adding any pollution to the atmosphere or environment. That thing has to be taken into consideration here. Then appropriate energy mix should be considered for both phases, production as well as use phase. Production phase and the manufacturing phase, and use phase is, so once the product is into operation, it is called as use phase. So two things are there. One is production, one is the use phase. Even in the production phase, as I was pointing out earlier, if you use green manufacturing, if you use the clean energy sources, there will be no pollution. Second, in the use phase, for example, right now, electric vehicles, it is not having any, additional or say no emissions to the atmosphere because it is electrical vehicle. There is no combustion at all. If there is no combustion, the point of emission never comes into picture. So in that way, that is the reason why the total automobile sector is turning towards the electrical vehicle, because electrical vehicle never results in any air pollution. But in case of the traditional automobiles, these are resulting in all sorts of pollution. That is the reason the trend is reversed now. Okay. See, what is the focus of the green manufacturing? It is focusing on, as I pointed out, conserving the natural resources, raw materials, work in progress, and finished goods. All the things. Then green manufacturing is pursued to be means of eco-efficiency. Why it is eco-efficiency? Because you are basically generating an eco-friendly process. Eco-friendly process, you are saving the natural resources. So that natural resources, if you save, definitely your fewer resources will be used for production or for any other purposes. Therefore, the entire process of green manufacturing is called as eco-efficient process. Eco in the sense ecology, ecologically friendly process, eco-efficiency process. So, what are the different companies which have implemented green manufacturing? See, in fact, these companies, not only these companies have implemented green manufacturing, but also they have been awarded for implementing green manufacturing. So, I think majority of the companies you know by name. So, Hindustan Unilever HUL, it is called as in short form HUL. The next, Jindal Steelwork, you call it as JSW. Then Hindustan Coca-Cola, Sidner Electric India, Borosil, Sun Pharma. So these companies have successfully implemented green manufacturing and they have been awarded for implementing green manufacturing successfully. Yes. Now, what are the limitations of green manufacturing? Yes. Green manufacturing comes with certain costs. You need to have proper infrastructure, proper machine, technology to implement green manufacturing. You cannot go for green manufacturing with as usual manufacturing process. Traditional manufacturing setup, you cannot go for that. You need to have some setup for implementing green manufacturing, and that comes with some cost, some infrastructure, technology, and it requires alternative process technology, and there is a lack of alternative raw material input for this. So that is the reason why some of the industries are not coming for implementation of green manufacturing, and in the coming days, taking into consideration the long-term benefits green manufacturing is providing, many of the companies will be in the race to implement green manufacturing. That is but sure. What are the conclusions? So, I was pointing out in the initial part of my presentation that entire globe is facing three problems: global warming, greenhouse effect, climate change. So these are the problems faced by countries around the world. It is not only with respect to India. And there are several conferences held to resolve these problems at the global level, because these are all global problems. And green manufacturing is providing solution to a larger extent to these problems, major problems which are global in nature. See, green manufacturing, although incurs with some initial cost for installation of equipment as a preventive measure against environmental pollution, global warming and greenhouse effect, all this provides benefits in the long run. If you invest something into your infrastructure, into your machines, then definitely whatever the benefits you get is long-term benefits. And if you make a trade-off, definitely when you make a trade-off between how much you have invested and what is the long-term benefits, you can get a clear picture of this has major benefits or what you have implemented here, taking into consideration the cost. So in that way, it is providing long-term benefits. Green manufacturing, not only it addresses the environmental issue, but also it results in conserving the energy. Conserving the energy. How it conserves the energy, I told you. So if you don't cut down the trees, then there is no logging, and you're going for recycling, and you're not using once again raw materials. So you're saving the energy, you're conserving the energy there. The next, resources and materials, natural resources and materials, which are all of great concern, irrespective of the nature and type of the firm. It means that whether it is manufacturing firm, or whether it is manufacturing cement, whether it is going, a firm is manufacturing, say, it is a pharma industry, or whether it is manufacturing something else, irrespective of what the firm is manufacturing, if you take into consideration these aspects, so this will result in long-term benefits, which are all important. Thank you. Any questions? Any questions? Yes, it is reducing waste. I gave example of recycling. So when you go for recycling, so you're using the same used paper as the raw material, and you're getting the same finished product. So the waste is reduced because you are not once again going for bamboo, you're cutting the trees, all these things. It is reducing the waste. And reusing, I told about reusing. You use any plastic bag, once you take the bag into the unit, that plastic bag can be reused. When you reuse, it is reducing the waste. And it's not only reducing the waste, it is keeping the environment clean. Better, clean, and green. Yes. Yes, sir.
Could you mention what is the other source of energy KSW is using apart from the coal energy.
No, I am not sure about what it is using, but I came to know that they are using their own source of energy generation. So exactly, I think the end output, whatever that is called as some corax or something else. Corax. Yeah, corax. It's a process. Corax, I think so. So that is the process, but raw materials, I need to confirm regarding that. Yes. Any other thing?